Reddit, a website dedicated to allowing users to dive into anything. It connects the world whilst allowing users to remain anonymous, and you can probably imagine how this has turned out over the years. Today, we're going to be embarking on a journey through the crazy, the dark, and the disturbing side of this website. I've seen my fair share of rabbit holes through the years, so I think it's time I talked about some of them. So, sit back and relax as we take a dive into the front page of the internet. When was the last time you had a dream so vivid that, upon waking up, the confusion of being back in the real world would start to flood your mind? Whatever you thought had just happened was just an illusion, created by your brain during the period of REM sleep. Well, 13 years ago, a user would stumble into the Ask Reddit sub to tell a story that has changed their life indefinitely. Have you ever felt a deep personal connection to a person you met in a dream, only to wake up feeling terrible because you realize they never existed? Throwaway account, because this is really personal. My last semester at a certain college, I was assaulted by a football player for walking where he was trying to drive. Note, he was 325 pounds and I was 120. While unconscious on the ground, I lived a different life. I met a wonderful young lady. She made my heart skip and my face red. I pursued her for months and dispatched a few jerk boyfriends before I finally won her over. After 2 years, we got married and almost immediately she bore me a daughter. I had a great job, and my wife didn't have to work outside of the house. When my daughter was 2, my wife bore me a son. My son was the joy of my life. I would walk into his room every morning before I left for work and doted on him and my daughter. One day, while sitting on the couch, I noticed that the perspective of the lamp was odd, like inverted. It was still in 3D, but just wrong. It was a square lamp base, red with gold trim and 4 legs, and a white square shade. I was transfixed. I couldn't look away from it. I stayed up all night staring at it. The next morning, I didn't go to work. Something was just not right about that lamp. I stopped eating. I left the couch only to use the bathroom at first. Soon I stopped that too, as I wasn't eating or drinking. I stared at that lamp for 3 days before my wife got really worried. She had someone come and try to talk to me. By this time, my cognizance was breaking up and my wife was freaking out. She took the kids to her mother's house just before I had my epiphany. The lamp, it's not real. The house is not real. My wife, my kids. None of that is real. The last 10 years of my life are not real. The lamp started to grow wider and deeper. It was still inverted dimensions. It took up my entire perspective and all I could see was red. I heard voices, screams, all kind of weird noises, and I became aware of pain. A shit ton of pain. The first words I said were, "I'm missing teeth," and opened my eyes. I was laying on my back on the sidewalk, surrounded by people that I didn't know. Lots were freaking out. I was completely confused. At some point, a cop scooped me up, dragged me across the sidewalk, and threw me face down into the back of a cop car. I was still confused. I was taken to the hospital by the cop. Seems he didn't want to wait for the ambulance to arrive and give CT scans. I went through about 3 years of horrid depression. I was grieving the loss of my wife and children and dealing with the knowledge that they never existed. I was scared that I was going insane as I would cry myself to sleep, hoping I would see her in my dreams. I never have, but sometimes I see my son, usually just a glimpse out of my peripheral vision. He is perpetually 5 years old and I can never hear what he says. I will not do an AMA. This Reddit user lived an entire life, only to wake up and find out that it never actually existed. The connections he made down the line and the amazing times that he shared with his beloved family were all just fabricated by his brain. He woke back up in his actual reality, forced to accept that the many years that he had just lived through never happened. Even worse, it felt like he had just lost his whole family in an instant. Every night he would fall asleep in hopes of seeing them again, but never had any luck. Apart from his beloved 5-year-old son that would appear in his peripheral vision every now and again to haunt him of the life he thought he had. The original post is now deleted, and we haven't heard anything else from this account. I just hope that, wherever this user is, he's managed to get the help he needs, because this sounds extremely traumatic. I'm 22 and this incident happened a year and a half ago. I had just moved into my first apartment and was in the process of moving in. The door that led into my apartment locks itself automatically when closed, so I was going to the entrance of the apartment complex to get my mail while talking on the phone with my boyfriend. I returned to my apartment and sat on the bed while opening the mail using the phone. I dropped the phone on the floor and it landed under the bed, so I had to lie on the floor and stretch for it. I saw something that caught my eye. There was someone under my bed. My eyes widened and I choked the urge to scream. The person under my bed was lying still with his back towards me and his head to his chest, so I couldn't see his face. And he didn't see me. Trying to be rational while so many thoughts rushed through my head, I picked up the phone, said, "Sorry, I dropped my phone. I'm just gonna take a shower and I'll call you back." The bathroom is right by my bed, so I hastily walked in, quietly locking the door, turned the shower on, jumped out of my window, and called the police. They told me to wait nearby, but to go across the street and see if anyone comes out the door to my apartment complex. This was during summer and it was still light out. I placed myself across the street, hiding behind a car while watching my open bathroom window and the entry door. I called my boyfriend and he came to me just before the police. I gave them my keys and they went inside. Only moments later, 2 cops came out holding a thin and tired-looking man. His eyes looked crazy, but he didn't try to get away. The policeman that had stood beside me and comforted me while the police searched through my house told me that the man stood outside my bathroom door with one of my kitchen knives, waiting for me to come out. This man had somehow crept in my entry door while I was getting my mail and hid under the bed. The man that was trying to hurt me turned out to be a homeless person and was placed in a mental hospital. My boyfriend moved in with me the very next day. What this user went through is enough to get me to check under my bed tonight, even at my big 24 years of age. What was meant to be her safe space turned life-threatening, and God knows what would have happened if the user didn't drop her phone. This and the act of thinking so quickly under pressure is what saved her life. You can never be too careful in this day and age, as there are some seriously messed up people out there. A couple days ago, I stumbled across a post that still has some mysteriousness to this day. A user had managed to get their hands on some Datura seeds and was asking the community if it was a good idea to try them. For those of you who don't know, Datura is a plant and a serious deliriant. When someone ingests this plant, it is known for ripping them out of the reality they know and love and placing them in a state of delirium. Trip reports tell of people having conversations with beings that don't exist, changing the user's life from then on, and not for the best either. The trip is essentially what feels like a never-ending nightmare that you cannot wake up from, except this nightmare becomes your reality as your brain cannot separate the real from the fake due to the state of delirium it's in. Nevertheless, let's jump into what Flip and Flop had to say. Finally got my hands on some Datura. How much should I take? Hi guys, I finally got some Datura to try out. I'm free tomorrow and I have the house to myself, so I'm really excited to try the effects of this interesting plant. I have around 60 seeds, some dried flowers and leaves. How much should I take for a nice first time trip? I was thinking of crushing up X seeds and making tea with them. Drink the tea and smoke a couple of leaves while the tea is starting to take effect. Would 15 seeds be enough? Sources on the internet tell me a regular dose is around 10 to 20, but I've seen some talk about 30 plus seeds. Thanks guys. Edit. Slowly drank the tea in half an hour. Didn't taste too bad. Not feeling much yet. I'll check back with you guys in an hour or so. Not too creepy, but when you consider that this is the last sane sounding post that we heard from Flip and Flop, it gets a lot more worrying. See, Datura is highly poisonous and can be fatal if ingested. Comments asking for updates started to flood in. Yet, Flip and Flop never made their way back onto the subreddit to update anyone. The only update we did get, which is reassuring but also heartbreaking at the same time, was on a completely separate gaming subreddit. It was a video of two mammoths fighting in a battle simulator. Flip and Flop commented, "Please, these big dog are fighting. Nah, okay." It's evident that Flip and Flop has lost their mind since taking the Datura. The plant has fried their mind for good, and is an example of why no one should ever mess with this plant. That's gonna be it for this video. If you enjoyed, then please consider leaving a like and subscribing, and also let me know if you want to see more of this in the future. But for now, I'll see you in the next. Ciao.